Have you ever wondered about consciousness? Personally, I think that consciousness is one of the most fascinating topics in all of human history, of science, religion, philosophy, etc. And I want to talk to you today about one unique aspect of consciousness, which is how we process information and how we think we make decisions. So let me give you a scenario. Have you ever walked into a Starbucks and had to make a decision about what drink to buy? Maybe you're looking at the menu and you think, should I get the latte or the cappuccino or the Thai tea or chai tea, whatever. Everyone has, right? Whether it's Starbucks, a restaurant, any type of fast food joint. All of us have been in a situation where we've had to look at some type of menu and make a decision. What I am going to argue today is that your whole entire life, you have never actually made that decision in that restaurant. And that any decision you think you made was actually already made by the wiring and neurons in your brain long before you ever walked into that Starbucks or McDonald's. I know that may be a far stretch for some people to understand, but I'm going to show you how science actually supports that today. And so here's another example. Let's say you're walking down the street and a baseball comes flying at your head, 100-mile-per-hour fastball. You catch it out of the corner of your eye and you dodge it at the last minute. It goes flying and breaks a window behind you. And you think to yourself, wow, I I can't believe I saw that baseball and thought and dodged the last minute to avoid breaking my nose. I have great reflexes, making that split second decision. Or maybe you're driving and you see some idiot cut you off, and at the last second you decide, okay, am I gonna brake, or am I gonna swerve into the shoulder? And you swerve into the shoulder at the last minute, narrowly avoiding hitting the car in front of you. And you're like, man, what a great decision to swerve into the shoulder, because I wouldn't have braked in time, I would have hit that car. Great decision, Robert. You didn't make that decision. That decision was already made long before your consciousness, your free will, whatever you call it, had any chance. And so let's talk about some neuroscience. So this phenomenon about the brain being wired for decision making was first observed as early as 1983, maybe even before then. But one of the first experiments I found was 1983. This neuroscientist named Benjamin Libet, he hooked up people's brains to EEG, electronic monitoring, and he found that people's brains activated about 550 milliseconds before they made a conscious movement. And so, he asked them to, you know, move your hand or something to that effect. And when you're getting ready to move your hand, say, I'm going to move my hand. Whatever it was. I don't know all the details. But here's the key part. He found that before participants said they were making a conscious decision, or that part of their brain was activated, their subconscious part of their brain had already started moving the hand. And he called this the readiness potential. Basically, that there's some part of the brain that activates before you actually decide to take the action. The brain is already activating before you make a decision. Okay, 500 milliseconds, that's like counting hairs, right? Well, fast forward to 2008, and a neuroscientist, John Dylan Haynes, and his colleagues at the Max Planck Institute, they asked participants to make a simple choice. Press one of two buttons. I don't know, red button, blue button, whatever. Two buttons, pick one, and say which one you're going to press, and then press it. And what he found is that he could measure, or he could identify which button participants would press a full 7 seconds before they actually realized or announced that they were made a decision to press the button. So 7 seconds before they decided, he could tell which button that they were going to press. And he quotes as saying, by the time the consciousness kicks in, most of the work has already been done. The decision has already been made. It's not a conscious decision, even though you think you're making the decision. It's a subconscious decision that your conscious mind doesn't actually decide. Right? Really fascinating. And I will explain why all this is important to you. It sounds very esoteric right now, but I'm going to explain why this is important to you and why all your hopes and dreams and goals in life hinge on this understanding, and how, if you understand it and change your outlook on life, it will change everything for you. Trust me. Okay, here's another example. And this is my personal favorite example. So there was a neuroscientist, Michael Gazzaniga, I'm probably butchering his name, but he studied patients that had the two hemispheres of their brains divided. And so for severe epileptic patients, there's a procedure where they cut the membrane that connects the two hemispheres of the brain, the corpus callosum. And this membrane, there's information that flows across the membrane, but the only way to eliminate epilepsy in certain patients is to sever that hemisphere, or sever the hemispheres, and participants can still go about living their daily lives with some adjustments, but the epileptic episodes stopped for the most part. Very invasive procedure, last-ditch effort, but there are people that have had this procedure done. And each part of your brain processes different types of information. So one hemisphere processes images, the other hemisphere processes language, and there's other different activities that are divided between the hemispheres of your brains. Well, Michael put and each eyeball is connected to one hemisphere. So I think it's like right eye connected to the left hemisphere and left eye connected to the other hemisphere. So what he did is he put a divider between the two eyes, and he showed one eye an image, in this case, an image of someone walking. And so he showed an image of someone walking to the, I believe it was the right hemisphere, so it would be opposite eye. And based upon the instructions, when the person saw this image of walk, the person got up and started walking. Now, then he asked the person afterwards, why did you get up and walk? The other half of the brain, the part of the brain that processes language, came up with explanations for why they walked. Now, the part of the brain that processes language did not see the image of the walking image. So the other hemisphere had no clue about the instructions to walk. But this other hemisphere would come up with rationale for why it thinks it walked. It would say, oh, I wanted to get a drink of water. I wanted to stretch my legs. I wanted to, do whatever. But rarely, ever, never, the other hemisphere would just say, I don't know. Nor would it say, I saw an image of walking, because it didn't actually see that image. It would make up excuses for why it thought the person went for a walk, even though it had no clue why the person actually walked. I hope I said that in a way that makes sense. And what Michael determined is that the brain is an interpreter. that the brain doesn't actually know why we make decisions, but yet it will come up with stories after the fact to try to explain why we decided what we decided. And the extrapolation of this is that we don't actually make any decisions in the moment, and everything that we think of as us making a decision, whenever we think, oh, I decided to take that job, I decided to take a raise, I decided to get married, any decision that we think we made in life wasn't actually a decision. It was our brain making up a story after the fact of why we made that decision. Like, for example, I decided to marry my wife because she's beautiful and loving and caring and you name it, right? That's our brain's best attempt to tell a story after the fact. However, our subconscious already made that decision long before we had any perception of free will or decision space. I think my light just went out, so the light changed a little bit. Should I charge my light or keep going? That is the $1,000,000 question. Am I actually deciding? Or is the decision already made? I think the decision is already made, and I think I will keep going. And me thinking I made this decision is probably the story that I'm telling myself after the fact. So I'm going to keep going because it's easier just to edit, and the video is not actually that bad if you're watching the video. Okay. Lots of philosophers have philosophized about this over the years. There's too many to count, but I think it's a very common belief or understanding that our brains are neurochemically wired to make decisions, and that wiring doesn't change in the moment. That wiring changes over extended periods of time. The wiring changes at night, especially. That's when most of our wiring is changing and being strengthened and formed. And there are other times where the wiring in our brain has changed, but when we walk into Starbucks, the wiring in our brain that is going to make that quote unquote decision is already fixed, and the wiring in our brain is not changing in the 5 minutes it takes us to walk from the front door to the register to order the drinks. The wiring in our brain is already fixed at that point, and the decision to order the cafe latte with 2 shots of mocha syrup has already been decided long before we were ever presented with the decision on which drink to order. Really fascinating. So then our brain, this free will, this decision maker, this consciousness in our default mode network, so to speak, is really a storyteller. It's spinning. It's like, it's not, the conscious brain is not the CEO of our higher intelligence, right? Like we talk about executive functioning of our brain, right? No, our conscious brain is not the executive. Our subconscious, the parts that happen below the level that we think, that's the CEO of our brain. Our conscious brain is actually like the public relations department that is telling stories to the public about why the company did XYZ to the best of its knowledge. even though it may not actually have access to the CEO and know why we did XYZ. Or another way of thinking about it is our conscious brain is like the data an analyst. And so, I have a PhD in artificial intelligence and technology. If you know anything about artificial intelligence, you know that artificial intelligence requires lots of data and it trains models based upon that data. And essentially, our conscious brain is doing data analysis at any given time. So it's creating a story of why it thinks it made a decision. And the reason it's creating that story after the fact is because that story is necessary to train our mental model to make better decisions in the future. And that is the crux of it all. Because if you want to improve any aspect of your life, maybe it's your marriage, maybe it's your work, maybe it's more financial wealth, whatever decision you want, or whatever aspect of your life you want to improve, you can only improve if you improve the way you make decisions. Because the universe will give you all the opportunities in the world, but if you don't know how to make good decisions, you will never capitalize on those opportunities that the universe is giving you. And so our goal in life should be to make better decisions. And we don't make any decisions in the moment. That life-changing opportunity, that opportunity that is going to propel you to the stratosphere of your business, the top of your career, that's going to create love and prosperity for your family for generations to come. That life-altering decision may only be 6 months or a year away. And when that decision is actually, or when that opportunity is presented to you, the decision has already been made. Your wiring is already done. And unless you train your brain to make better decisions, you are going to miss the next opportunity of a lifetime. How do we actually train our brain? I mentioned the big way earlier, sleep. You need 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night, because sleep is when the training of your brain networks, that's when most of the training happens. And if you're not getting your 7 to 8 hours of sleep per night, you're going to continue to make shitty decisions and be stuck in your current life circumstances forever. You need sleep, number one, in order to make better decisions in the future. How else? There's a few other ways: food, nutrition, exercise, etc. But the few areas that we are lacking most as a society right now is reflection and mindfulness. And so, once again, your conscious brain, the part of your brain that you think makes decisions, even though it doesn't really, but the part of your brain that ruminates, it needs time to actually ruminate. Rumination is how your brain processes information and makes better decisions in the future. Now, healthy rumination actually turns into ideas, thoughts, and changes, right? There are unhealthy patterns of rumination where you just don't actually take any action or do anything. But I'm talking about positive rumination. It requires reflection. It requires peace and quiet. It requires making time away from the busyness that is our lives. And so every day you should be spending quiet time just thinking about things. I think this is one of the reasons why remote work is actually unhealthy, because I know too many people that do remote work that never commute anywhere. And for lots of people, commuting is one of the key rumination times where you can just kind of zone out and think about your day, think about what you want to accomplish in the day, think about what actually happened in the day, think about what you want to do when you get home. And, Sarah Blakely, she's a CEO and founder of Spanx. She would say that she will get in the car and drive for like an hour or longer when she has a difficult problem, just so she can ruminate and think, because that's when she has the most creative ideas and creative thoughts, is just getting in the car and driving. And so if you are not driving, if you're not making time for reflection, if you're not having moments of quiet in your life where you can just sit and think and just do nothing and turn off your phone or put your phone away, because the phone, the scrolling, the likes, the comments, the text kills rumination. It kills that ability for your brain to process data and improve how it makes decisions. You need quiet time. You need reflection every day, and at least once a week. Hopefully you're journaling and writing things down, writing your thoughts out, because even that process of journaling also helps your brain process information to make better decisions in the future. I said a lot. I don't really have much else on this one, other than, just to beat it on the head one more time. If you want to change any aspect of your life, it starts with making better decisions. And you don't make any decisions in the moment. You make better decisions weeks, months, years before the universe gives you that opportunity. And you make better decisions by spending time to reflect, to ruminate, to process data, and think through things away from the distractions of life, away from stress and chronic fatigue and all that stuff. Reflection and mindfulness is key, as well as sleep, is key to processing data more effectively, so that your brain can make better decisions in the future when the opportunity arises. All of us should adopt a training mindset, training your mind to make better decisions, right? I personally think that is one of the keys to life, right? Well, thank you. I am Dr. Robert Solano. I wish you nothing but a life full of love, happiness, and adventure. You have nothing but my love and gratitude. If you like this episode or have any questions, please drop a comment, like, share, do whatever you're supposed to do. You know the deal. This is here to help you, and hopefully it did. Thank you.